Here we go. All right, so chapter 17 speaks basically about that point in time that something happened. So we want to prevent and respond to the incident. We want to prevent the incident, and if we cannot prevent the incident, then we want to be able to respond to it. Security incidents are given. They are part of what businesses do. So if an executive or someone in your organization tells you, no, we don't have security incidents, and we talked about that before, we don't have incidents and we not worry about this too much, this is your area to be concerned. Organizations that don't test their cyber controls, they don't run any assessment, they're simply waiting for the accident to happen, and this will catch them unprepared and not ready for this, and with the most impact. So, as you work with your organization, know that there can be resistance to even look at those risks. And that part, if I go back to domain one, that part is called risk ignorance. This is something we don't do. We do risk avoidance, but not risk ignorance. We don't ignore the risk. Okay, we want to look at it. We want to know about it, and we want to detect potential vulnerabilities that will eventually lead to incidents. Okay, that's our job, to prevent the incident. We want to be proactive when it comes to security and not reactive. So the question is not if we get hit, but most likely will be when will we get hit and how bad will it be, how costly will it be. So as you prepare for the incident, you need to make some decisions, some critical decisions before it takes place. You need to get your management approval to have the right budget, have the right resources, have the right people next to you. Maybe you are one security guy in your organization. Maybe you have 100 people working for you. At the end of the day, you will not be able to operate or to be as effective as you will be if you won't have your management approval and support. So this critical decisions has to be backed up with management support. They need to help you decide on what to protect. Where are the assets? They need to tell you what is important more than anything else for the organizations. They need to describe the business to you, and then you can bring your tool set of incident preparation to the table and be as effective as you can be. The incidents that we can expect are anything from reputational damage to PC that is not operative anymore for some reason, or an employee cell phone that is now wiped. There's a huge range of incidents that can take place. It all comes down to what is the impact and how effective is our landscape of controls to work against it. So to mitigate that risk, to mitigate that incident as quickly as possible and as efficient as possible for the organization. Incidents can trigger criminal actions. Incidents can be triggered to criminal lawsuits. And you need to be aware of that. You need to work with your legal department. And when criminal actions are taking place, for example, fraudulent employees, and theft of assets, maybe even money from your organization, you do not want to be alone there. You don't want to be that CISO, that security guy that is pointing fingers at everybody. You want to have your legal department with you. In order to get criminal laws to apply and to get to a full conviction of that criminal, whether inside the organization or outside the organization, we talked about that in domain one when we talked about governance. We need to gain proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. So the proof for criminal laws needs to be 100%. 99% is not enough. In your questions, it's not enough. Okay. Privacy, we talked a lot about that, and the privacy violations that can take place can potentially put your organization in a bad situation in the eyes of the public, the eyes of the individuals that you will work with. So work closely. Again, this is another message that is repetitive here. As you prepare for incidents, work with your legal department, work with them. They know how to prepare the ground for the fact that there was no negligence taking place in your organization. You prepared yourself right, and this is all backed up and documented. External attackers are those that are coming from your outside the organization. However, those external attackers are perceived as the number one problem of the organization. The truth to be said is that over 70% of cyber incidents will start from the internal vector. So internal attackers, attackers that gain access to credentials and are operating from inside the organization. External attackers, remember that they need to break our firewall. They need to break the wall that we created around the organization. That wall is structured from technology, people, processes, or wealth, reputation. They need to break all that. So they probably don't want to face those controls that we have on the perimeter. It's easier to compromise an executive's credentials using a phishing email, and with that to get a foothold in your internal network. So the internal attacker is by far much likely to be to take place in your network, and for that one, you want to be prepared as you put detection mechanism inside your organization. So if we look at the incident handling manifest, or the list that we need to have in place for the incident handling, we always start with preparation. And if you look at frameworks, for example, standards like the NIST CSF, it's all about the preparation. It's all about prevention, and know your assets, know your risks, ask the questions, assess your vulnerabilities, and all that. Map your risks so you can be better prepared for the one time that something happens. Okay, at that point, and I'm looking at the whiteboard and what we drew before together. That's something that happened, that point in time that something happened, and then we start losing money. So in order to cut those losses, first we need to know that something happened, and from that to start counting the losses and say, hey, this is the maximum level that I can go to, and this is where I cut my losses. Preparation is the beginning, and then we have everything else that we saw: detection, response, mitigation, reporting, recovery, remediation, and lessons learned. Know that in your CISSP exam, the detection phase can also be referred to as identification phase. All right, guys? This is really important. For response phase, they can also refer to as containment phase, right? Even though containment is the objective of both detection and response, they might refer to this phase, the response phase, as the containment phase. All right? This is the lingo they use. And then mitigation is when you address the problem, you put off the fire, right? You don't yet deal with the risk, but you deal with the fire itself, is also called eradication. All right, guys? You all with me? Carlo, Jega, Aaron? Since I don't see you,
Yes,
I'm just
yes.
checking
Yes,
up on you.
yes, yes,
All
yes.
right, this is really important because the language might be
Yep, yep.
different in your questions, in your CSSP exam. So know that detection, aka identification, response, aka containment, mitigation, aka eradication. All right, and between each phase here, we do internal reporting. All right, we have a phase for reporting, which is external, but for between each phase, we report directly to senior management and we say, okay, we know that this happened. We did detection, we did identification. Now this is the plan of response. We follow the plans of response. It succeeded, it didn't succeed, semi-succeeded. And then we do mitigation or eradication. We constantly report to senior management. All right, guys? All right, cool. As you do the preparation, and we now break down one by one, as you do the preparation, you need everything in writing, okay? Planning is everything. So you gain management support, it's in writing. You get your policies, written policies approved okay, by senior management, signed and approved by senior management, signed and accepted by your users. Your users understand the policies that you have, okay? This is all part of the preparation. Also, identify your assets, identify your risks, and identify the contacts in other organizations, legal contacts, contracts, law enforcement, vendors, shareholders, stock exchange market that you need to report to. Anything that is outside the organization and might have an interest in what is going on in your organization might be even able to help you. In Israel, we have the cyber authority that offers help free of charge to organizations that are affected, that are under attack. So they will send a team, they will send a forensic team, they will send a team to help them mitigate and respond and recover from that incident. They're very limited workforce or manpower there, but still they do that. So that's a good thing to know. You know, you want to have that on your IRP and your incident response plan as you plan toward that, you know, time that you will have in your detection mechanism saying there's an incident here. Also, you want to have a checklist of what you need to do. You want to practice, you want to run drills on incidents because as you practice more, just like the CISSP exam, as you practice more, everything becomes automated. Okay, as you need to, you get the call for that cyber incident, you know exactly what you need to do because you've been practicing that every quarter. Every quarter, we had half a day or a full day of ransomware attack simulation. Now we know what we need to do. It's the same thing as we practice, just like in the military service. Okay, we practice and then we automatically do it when the real thing happens. Things will happen, and as they happen, we want to know about them. And this is the detection phase, as we mentioned before. Be willing to alert early, but do not jump to conclusion. This is big in the CISSP. All right. One area that I can anticipate that they will ask you about is in your detection phase. When, listen to the question. When do you decide that this is an incident? If this happens, and they will present to you an accumulated situation, right? First, we lost connection with between Germany and Israel. Then the exchange server is kind of crippled, and then our website was defaced. Okay, we experienced defacement attack on our website. When do we decide that we are under cyber attack? Right? You as a CISSP need to know when to raise the flag and not to cry wolf. Okay? So how do you do that? You need to have measurements in place. You need to have metrics in place. And those metrics are categorized according to the word SMART, the acronym SMART. They need to be specific, measurable metrics, achievable, realistic, and timely. So you need to say, okay, when a user is get locked out of a system time and time again, day one, day two, every morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, come into the office, they give us a call, I'm locked, and I'm locked again, and I'm locked again every day. When will you raise the flag, or when will you start investigating this events? Is this an incident, or do we just have a user that is not well educated on computers? Maybe this is the case, but maybe your attackers targeted the less educated workforce on computers, so you can assume nothing happens. But guess what? Something actually happens there. So when do you decide? And this will be measured according to your SMART measurements, SMART guidelines. You want to have those scenarios in place before the decision can be taken. As you took the decision to say, we have an incident here, now you trigger an automated process that starts with response. When we respond, we first handle the situation, okay? We send our team out there to try and lower the flames, to gain control of the fire. Shachar, you have a question?
Yeah, again, saying that the event has to be the event has to
I'm sorry, I
be.
cannot hear you well. Again?
You hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, the events are has to be measured. Okay, so when do you decide that the event is an incident? And again, I need a concrete example. What is the expected answer?
Right. So the base of all this is in relation, in a direct relation to your risk tolerance, something you should have done prior to that incident, right? You cannot decide on the incident that this is an incident and that this is not. Those needs to be prior discussions with senior management and the definition of risk scenarios. It takes me back to domain one, okay? So all the openness there and transparency there with senior management needs to take place beforehand. So now we know, okay, this is an incident. This is something we cannot look away. We cannot wait with it, right? The definition of ERP as a critical function and Exchange not a critical function takes place in domain two when we talked about asset security, right? But it comes handy here. So anything that happens, anything that disturbs the ERP operation is considered an incident. But this needs to be defined, in much earlier stages.
So if they will ask a question, they will ask a question about, they will give you a scenario, they will give you an asset, they will announce what is the critical asset, and then they will give you events, and then you have to decide according to that.
They will ask you, on what do you base your decision to trigger incident response plan? You base your decision on the business impact analysis, on the risk assessment, on asset classification, right? On data ownership or direction. This is how you base your decision. It happens, much earlier than the incident itself.
I see.
Does this answer the question?
Yeah. So they will ask you what on what you based your decision, and not rather than giving you a scenario and tell you.
Yeah, they want to know that
type of event.
that you understand the full scale of work that needs to be done here prior to the incident. The incident itself is just a point in time. Okay. By the way, when we look at the corona, landscape today, from the beginning, I said that this should be treated as an incident because it has all the ingredients of an incident. We had a world routine, right? And then something happened. Now, doesn't this happen every year? Maybe even all the time that we have viruses outbreaks somewhere in the world? What made this one so critical, so unique, that the world calls it, we refer to it as a crisis.
Disruptive event.
But it's not a crisis. The crisis is the outcome of the incident. This is an incident. We are in the definition of incident response program. The fact that we were not ready for it means that we didn't put enough time and resources in preparation. And now the losses that we had are massive, and this is what makes the whole situation a crisis because of the losses. But the whole chain is an incident. Think about it. Next time that you read the news about the COVID-19, try to refer to it as an incident. It makes it easier to swallow, by the way. Just my experience. It makes it easier to process. So the response needs to be tailored according to your risk scenarios. Shachar, this gives the other part of what you were looking for. Risk scenarios are defined at the beginning, right? Risk management. And when we define those risk scenarios, we say, What can go wrong? What will happen? Okay, what is the worst case scenario? And as we define that, we also define what we're going to do about it. How did it get materialized? So the risk get materialized, and that's where we want to trigger the incident response plan, right?
Yep.
And there's no one size for everyone. So we need to tailor that incident response and every mitigation process that will come after this. So mitigation is basically improving our defenses. Okay, this is dealing with the what caused that incident to be as wide as we are in order to define it as incident. So it was event, but now it's an incident. So it's not the root cause, it's not the risk that we're dealing, but more the areas that the flames caught, the areas that caught fire after that initial fire started. So it's the enhancement of that incident, all right? And then reporting, we said that the reporting takes place throughout all phases of the incident, but there's one reporting phase that takes place to outside organization. This one can never be the CISO. Put this in writing. Put this as a note. I don't know, red mark, mark it with red red colors. The CISO cannot be the one to do the external reporting. In most situations, not even the CEO. And why is that? Why do you think this is a situation that the CEO cannot be the one to interview out there and explain night after night, much like the Prime Minister and the President of the United States, sending night after night and briefing the press? Why they cannot be the ones to do that? Do you have any idea or any guess why these guys could not be the ones to address the briefing, the constant briefing of the external parties?
Because they're objective.
Exactly. They are part of, I wouldn't call it the problem, but they are part of the affected party. They are biased. The thing about it, the CISO invested so much in protecting that when you put that CISO in front of the audience and he needs to speak about how we protect, this guy wants to protect his job. And the CEO the same. The CEO wants to transfer, to build the message of we are stable, we are strong, we can do this, da da da. The same thing for COVID-19. The Prime Minister cannot speak about the war on COVID-19 or the remediation of COVID-19 because he's part of it. He's not objective. Okay? So we want a third or someone outside the team that either manages or owns the assets, and definitely outside the team that manages the incident response. We want a spokesman, someone that is qualified, spokesman or spokeswoman that is qualified in talking to the press, that is familiar with.
In Israel, they call it projector.
What's that, Aaron?
I said that in Israel, they call it projector.
Yes, they call it many names in Israel. None of them work, by the way. So as we do the reporting with the external parties using that spokesman, spokeswoman, in the background, we start doing recovery. And recovery is all about the business. That's what I want you to write down here as a note for you. Recovery is all about the business. You make sure the business went back to normal operation that it used to. Your system or systems might still be affected, and it might take you even a year or two or even 10 years to restore them, okay? But the recovery here is the business, the recovery of the business. Then you move to remediation. Remediation is the remediation of your risk. There can be short-term remediation, like changing your passwords or patching the affected system to bring it back to life. Or there can be long-term remediation, like, for example, like implementing two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication, or improving the overall patching process of the organization, or in general, risk remediation. So you look at the overall risk and you remediate that, okay? The last part here is the lessons learned. This part is when we earn the mistake. This is the investment, okay? We already lost money, we lost time, we lost some reputation, we lost some clients. Let's earn this. You don't fire your CISO after a cyber incident, all right? Never. This is losing the investment, losing the incident, all right? Tell this to your boss. You don't fire security people after ransomware. If you do that, you're most likely guaranteed to have even a worse ransomware attack. If your team went through the ransomware attack and you recovered, it'll be stupid to fire them because now they are trained. They are better than whatever you can bring. Okay? So this is key for your discussion with your senior management. And then we have what we call post-mortem review, which is basically running some sort of an audit or a forensic investigation on the incident. Are we good, guys?
Yeah.
All right. So I think, as you look at domain 7, go back to that drawing on the whiteboard. Have it in front of you. Maybe one of you can actually capture it and send it. You know what? I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to send it in the group, send a picture in the group, and then you can print it for your usage. Print it, have it in front of you for domain 7, and go back to it as your anchor. Not good. All right. You can print it out and you can have it in front of you as you deal with domain 7 questions. Any questions on this part, guys?
No.
All right. We have two options now. We can cover chapter 18, or we can wait with chapter 18 after the break. Since we have, I don't know, 20 minutes, I think probably best to wait with this till after the break, and maybe try to deal with some questions. So for this part, I'm not going to do the questions with you. I want you guys to log into ClassMarket individually, and I want you guys to take the 20 questions on domain 7. Okay, some of domain 7 we didn't cover yet, but most of domain 7 is right here in front of you. And as you progress now, I'm going to be looking at ClassMarker. Okay, I'm going to be looking at the system, and maybe look and maybe give you an advice here or there. Okay. So I ask you all to log into ClassMarker now, and I want to see that you start your domain 7 exam, and I'm going to be logging with you. And then we meet again. You take the exam. If you're done, then you're free to go. And then we meet again at 2 o'clock your time for the continuance of domain 7. All right?
Okay.
All right, go ahead and do it. And I will be shortly with you on the system.